Welcome, Sagittarius, to your in-depth weekly astrology overview and zodiac forecast for week commencing the 15th of June for the ascendant, the sun, or the moon. Going to share the big themes of the week ahead first. On screen is your event chart as we go into Monday. I'll unpack that. Always influential. I'll then go through each of the influences in detail. At the end of the forecast, you have a clear picture of what's upcoming in terms of your energy, work, relationships, or finances. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel, and a very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now to help it to continue to thrive. But please also click or tap the bell notification symbol. As we come into the week, there's a new moon on Monday in the quick-witted sign of Gemini, but for you, very much about relationships. But Uranus is in the sign of Gemini at the time of a new moon for the first time in 77 years and is right on your seventh house cusp. And it's interacting in a potentially challenging way to the nodal axis. What's the significance for you? But Venus, the planet of relating, is actually in sparkling form this week, forging a series of wonderful connections. And also Jupiter, your ruler, starts the week in a semi-sextile to the lunation, but is then met in a sextile by Mars as the week goes on, which can really increase your physical energy. But we do have Chiron, the so-called wounded healer, moving into your sector of welfare, and you could argue health, on Friday. Just to reassure you, I see Chiron as being a very psychological influence, but I will unpack that for you. It's going to be there for 3 months. And then as the week draws to a close, the sun moves into the sign of Cancer, which is very much about being protective, very much to do with the emotional and nurturing dimension. But for you, it's the eighth house, which can be to do with transformations. But it also ushers in cardinal quadrant 2, the second 13-week period of the Western tropical astrological calendar with the solstice. So on the screen now, Sagittarius, is your event chart. And there's the combination of the sun and the moon in the sign of Gemini. So Gemini is about fast exchanges, can be to do with nimble and agile moves. And in the seventh house, there is a chance there that you can use its energies to interact with people in a more productive way over the next 4 weeks. It's also forging a great link to your ruler Jupiter. If there is someone you're really enjoying getting closer to, that's a very, very positive alliance. But Uranus right on that seventh house cusp does suggest that if you're in a relationship that you're not really enjoying, or you're quite happy on your solo status, Uranus there is really going to emphasize that. But its T square with the north and south nodes is particularly significant. It goes through to the 26th of July when the nodes move. But for you, let's just think of the archetype. So Virgo is about our physical realm. The sign of Pisces is much more to do with the spiritual and psychological one, and Gemini is much more to do with the mental one. So if you're thinking about relationships, it's important to also consider the emotional dimension, but also the more practical dimension too. But Uranus can be quite disruptive. It's quite a challenging influence. It can sometimes push us to do things at speed. So you may find that just balancing the connection to what you're used to and what your emotional needs would like around close relationships could be a little bit challenging if you're not as settled as you would like right through to the end of July. But I mentioned in my preamble about the energy of Venus. So Venus is in the part of your chart that's very much to do with exploration, but it can be to do with freedom, and it can also be to do with being a truth seeker. So if you aren't enjoying a relationship of any kind and you decide to break away from it, it's probably because at some level you feel crushed or confined. But Venus, if you are looking to socialize or looking to meet people or looking to travel, is in a delicious link with Uranus and also with Neptune. and comes into an opposition with Pluto on Friday. So I think there could be some really intriguing conversations this week, and perhaps even some flirty ones too. I also mentioned about Mars and Jupiter. So as the week goes on, Mars, which has been reinforcing your stamina in recent weeks, comes into an exact sextile with Jupiter on the 28th of June, but that builds up this week. And that gives you a chance, if you're wanting to use your thrust to work on financial or business affairs, a lot more dynamism and urgency. The only thing I could say to you beyond that T-square with Uranus is that Mercury is coming out of a very tricky square with Saturn. So if there have been some tense conversations around any kind of connection about money or who does or contributes what, it wouldn't be a surprise. Now, I mentioned about Chiron moving into your sector of health, but remember, Chiron is more about trying to understand how we don't necessarily feel that something's solved. So it depends where it is natally for you. That's the most important influence. But over the next 3 months, if you have got an aspect of your physicality that you're not particularly satisfied with, I think it could be a good opportunity for you to work on that, to recognize that there are other things about you that are very valuable, because the sign of Taurus is about valuing, and it can be about our self-worth. Now, as we get to the end of the week and the sun moves on the solstice into the sign of Cancer, into your eighth house, that's linking back to the position of Chiron in a lovely way. And perhaps the following month or 13 weeks gives you a chance to think deeper about how you can value yourself, but particularly in close alliances or around intimate situations. I'm going to summarize the 4 areas of energy, work, relationships, and finances next, Sagittarius. But just before I do, to say I've slashed the price of my personal horoscope report. For many years, it was buy two, get 30% off. Now it's buy one and get three for the price of one. I'm doing this because I know people are feeling the cost of living increases, and I want to make the charts as accessible as possible. The one you pay for is your life roadmap report. That's really crucial because that helps us to understand the different components in our nature, break them down, get more intimate with them, and that helps us to make better decisions future forwards. The free charts are your 12 months transit, totally unique to you, and also your Draconic Soul Karmic analysis, which looks at astrology, life, and you in a different way. Please see below for more. If you've yet to watch your Gemini new moon video, that's on the screen. If you've yet to watch your Chiron into Taurus 50-year return video on the screen. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, it'd be a pleasure. Please see my testimonials below. And if you've yet to sign up for my free daily written horoscope, fired to your device each morning for your early day celestial pit stop, please feel very welcome to do that below too as well. So energy, that's the first area we need to look at. I feel that the angle between Uranus and the nodal axis could be a challenge for all of us because we're so bombarded with information, whether it is texts or emails, or it's the things that are more enjoyable like memes. And at times it's just a lot. And because Gemini is such a mental and so much to do with data, but also the sharing of information, Uranus can definitely uh, see lots of advances and can see us working with that energy in a positive way, but it may also tease us at times to separate ourselves from it, because having the North Node in that fourth house, it's important to protect your emotional energy. The South Node energy to protect the energy you need to put into your professional situation. So that is something to be mindful of. Or are there certain friendships you have? It may be with people you like, but it just doesn't quite work for you, the energetic exchange. Maybe Uranus is asking you to set your boundary a bit firmer. You know, you have a natural appreciation of personal space and independence. If that slipped a little bit, time to reassert that. As far as your professional situation is concerned, I feel that the sixth house energy of Mars is great because it can help you to be really on the ball, focused on the details, not too much needing of approval, and just doing something that is of assistance to others. And that link to Jupiter, which is developing through to the 28th when it becomes exact, can bring finally some kind of improvement around your work or potentially around your finances. But I suppose with a new moon in the seventh house, this is a week when relationships are going to be very much to the fore. I'm often saying it's not about only romantic relationships. And because you have Saturn in the part of your chart to do with romance, clashing with Mercury at the start of the week to do with intimacy and commitment, it may be that there is a bit more need for space, particularly if something really has been bumping along the bottom. But I think one of the things this new moon is asking you to do is really be open to listen or open to exchange. The seventh house isn't just about relating, it's also about understanding what the other person wants and also appreciating that it's very rare that any relationship is absolutely perfect. So if there is good dialogue going backwards and forwards, particularly now Mercury is in its pre-retrograde shadow, I think that's important for your romantic situation. But if you are footloose and fancy free and you're traveling anywhere, I think there could be some extremely flirty encounters, and maybe one's going to get hot as you get to Friday with Venus in that direct opposition with Pluto. If you do encounter someone you find irresistible, just be sure on your motives and of theirs too. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Have a great week, Sagittarius. All the best and goodbye.